Welcome back everyone. We're going to be doing another comparison this time around between two phones that are actually way more similar than not, and those are the Google Pixel 4a, which was just kind of newly announced, and the Samsung Galaxy A51, which is a little bit of an older device, but not really because it just came out like in December. And so you can actually pick both of these up for fairly cheap prices. The Samsung Galaxy A51 you can pick up on Amazon for around $300, and I will leave that link down below so you can get it from there and help support the channel at the same time. And the Google Pixel 4a cost around $350 brand new. Now the 4a you still can't purchase. I think August 20th is when it officially comes out, and I can definitely tell you there's pros and cons for both of these devices. It's not like necessarily one blows the other one out of the water, but what's really interesting are the designs of both these phones. Now, starting off with the front, I'll start off with the Galaxy A51 since it is the older one. We have a 6.5-inch Super AMOLED display, and that one is a 1080p panel. And what's really decent about this panel is that, first of all, it's not even that bad of a panel. It's not even decent, it's pretty good for the price, which is what I really do like, so it's above decent. And what's the best thing about this panel is that when you look at it, it really does look like a flagship device from the front. You could say kind of the same thing with the Pixel 4a, but with the A51, you're getting that center hole punch display, which is very, very cool. That's something we're getting on phones like the Galaxy S20 Ultra and the Note 20 Ultra, and we have it on this phone, which is very, very impressive. So on a phone like the Samsung Galaxy A51, you're getting a ginormous display, but on top of that, it looks really nice too. And yeah, it's not like the best looking AMOLED display. You don't have like 90 or 120 Hz or anything, but the Pixel 4a doesn't have it either. And for a budget device, that's actually a pretty good looking panel. Whereas on the Google Pixel 4a, we have a 5.81-inch OLED display, and that one is also 1080p, but technically the pixels per inch in the screen density is higher on something like a Pixel 4a than the Samsung Galaxy A51. That basically has to do with how big that screen is for the most part and how high resolution that display is. But the Pixel 4a also has a hole punch display on the top left corner, which is very, very impressive. And like I said, it's just the last couple years of budget phones have been getting crazy good. If you looked at a phone like the A51 or Pixel 4a from like 4 or 5 years ago, you would be insane that even a flagship would look like this, let alone a budget phone, which is very, very impressive. On the Pixel 4a, like I said, top left corner, and both screens were really good. I don't think one really blew the other one out of the water, but something about that A51 display, I do like that top center display more than the top left, but to each their own. I think they're both very good displays at the end of the day. They both have USB Type-C, which is really cool. And on the back, a little bit of a different type of setup. On the A51, you had this type of polycarbonate type of feeling on the back. I don't think it's glass, but it still feels really good. The Pixel 4a has a plastic back, which I think is one of its biggest downsides for sure. The feeling of both phones, the 4a just does not feel as premium as the A51, so keep that in mind. The A51 also has, for some reason, a quadruple camera setup. I don't know why they did this. The Pixel 4a has a single camera setup, and I'll definitely get into those in a second because it's very interesting. The A51 has a humongous asset of having that microSD card slot, which is very cool. The Pixel 4a does not have anything like that, which kind of does suck, but again, you have 128 gigs of storage on that, so if you're looking for a budget phone, it's a decent storage amount, but still it would have been really cool if we had a microSD card slot on that phone. Now, in terms of the outside, I think that really pretty much covers it up. I definitely do think that the A51, in terms of the outside, is probably the better phone overall just because of that microSD card slot, as well as that feeling of the phone and the screen. I think the screen looks really good on it too, but the Pixel 4a is still a tremendous device when it comes down to just the outside for the price that you're paying for. Now, hitting on the software, this is the one area where the Pixel 4a is definitely going to outlast and just outperform the Galaxy A51. The Pixel 4a has that stock Android 10 on it, which is so nice. The A51 also has Android 10, but beyond just the stock Android version and all that stuff, I really do like stock Android, which is why the 4a is just automatically the winner for me. But the other thing to keep in mind is that software support is a humongous deal for the Pixel lineup. You're pretty much getting day one updates on a phone like the Pixel 4a. With A51, you have to, once Android 11 comes out, the Pixel 4a is going to have it for many, many months up until the A51 gets it. Eventually the A51 will get it, and then we'll already have the Android 12 beta, so it's just kind of weird. I'll definitely tell you Pixel 4a will definitely win in terms of the software department in every single way, and it'll probably outlast the A51 in terms of software as well, so that's another big thing to keep in mind. In terms of performance, I'll go and tell you the specs, and I'll tell you some real world use after. The A51 has the Exynos 9611 chipset, an octa-core CPU, with 4 gigs of RAM on the base model, 6 gigs of RAM in the mid-tier model, and 8 gigs of RAM on that top-tier model, where the Google Pixel 4a has the Qualcomm Snapdragon 730G chipset, an octa-core CPU, an Adreno 618 GPU, and 6 gigs of RAM on that base model. So if we're comparing both, technically speaking, the Pixel 4a base model has more RAM than the base model of the A51, and I did have the A51 base model when I was, using it, but do keep in mind you can always upgrade the RAM on the A51 and get a top tier model if you want to. And in terms of the performance, what I was able to see is that I kind of do think that the Pixel 4a is the smoother performing device out of both of them. I think the A51 is a pretty good performing device too, but I don't know, I just feel like the Pixel 4a is actually a really good performing phone for being a budget device. Now, I do think the A51, like I stated, is good enough for the most part. Really, whatever you're going to do with it, both phones are going to be able to handle it. Really, there's not going to be one that goes crazy or does crazy numbers beyond the other one. But I still definitely do think if I had to use one on an everyday basis, the Pixel 4a seems to me like the faster one and also the smoother one, and those two things are very important. On the A51, I think one of the biggest disadvantages of it would definitely be the software. I feel like the software of this phone really has a lot to kind of own up to. It still is an improvement from, TouchWiz and Samsung Experience and all that, but I still think One UI compared to stock Android, like you can have a phone with better specs than a stock Android phone, but maybe the stock Android phone can still kind of outperform the One UI phone just based off the software. And I feel like as more time progresses, phones are just going to become way more powerful, so it's okay at a certain point, but I'll definitely tell you when it comes down to the performance, I would probably end up giving the edge to the Google Pixel 4a over the Samsung Galaxy A51 in my opinion. Now, hitting on the cameras, this is what's really interesting about them. So like I said, the Samsung Galaxy A51 has that quadruple camera setup. You're getting a 48 megapixel wide angle lens, 12 megapixel ultra wide sensor, 5 megapixel macro lens, and then a 5 megapixel depth sensor, whereas on the Google Pixel 4a, we're getting a single 12.2 megapixel sensor. Now, both can only do 4K at 30, which is still a lot. I think that's pretty good for a basic, budget phone, but it would have been cool if we had 4K at 60. With phones doing, 8K, both of these kind of suffer in that department. So, however, I will tell you, surprisingly, camera quality, in my opinion, I think the Google Pixel 4a is the better camera quality. However, it is really cool that the A51 has those additional camera sensors. Even though those additional camera sensors are kind of like whatever, they're just kind of there to make the phone look better and look more premium. At the end of the day, nobody's going to be using the 5 megapixel macro or 5 megapixel depth sensor. The ultra wide sensor, however, is a really cool thing that I do like about the A51, and I really do wish the Pixel 4a had that type of capability. It kind of sucks that it doesn't, I'll be honest, but you still have, that single good sensor for the most part. And as long as you can shoot 4K videos on it, I think you'll be okay, but I would still probably give the edge to the Galaxy A51 just because of that ultra-wide sensor. The other two lenses for me don't really matter, but that ultra-wide sensor is actually pretty decent. On the front, 8 megapixel sensor on the 4A, 32 megapixel sensor on the A51. Both can do 1080p videos, and I really don't think one blows the other one out of the water in this case either. They both are kind of the same, but I would probably give the edge for the whole entire camera setup to the Galaxy A51 over the Pixel 4a. Now, ending it off with the battery life, the Galaxy A51 has a 4,000 mAh battery, the Pixel 4a has a 3,140 mAh battery, and between both, it's kind of weird because you would assume that the A51, because it has such a massive screen, you would assume that it doesn't last as long, but I truly believe that the A51 actually has better battery life than the Pixel 4a, and this has a lot to do with just the size of the battery. The Pixel 4a has definitely not a small battery, and it's weird too because on stock Android, you tend to save more battery life than not, and with a phone like the A51, with it being, as big as it is, and with it having One UI 2, that definitely takes a hit on battery life, but it still, is pretty much better than the Pixel 4a in every angle when it comes down to the battery life. So in terms of that really pretty much hits on everything that I wanted to hit on. Now, I will tell you, if you're in the market, if you're looking at both of these phones, because these are probably going to be two major competitors, which one should you pick up? I will tell you, if it was me personally, this is a tough one because I like the bigger screen of the A51, I like the way it looks, and I like the way it feels. But with the Pixel 4a, you're getting that software experience, you're getting a pretty good performing phone. And there are some cases where they both lag out on, like they both don't have wireless charging, they both don't have IP certification, but they both do have really good looking displays for the most part. They both have pretty good cameras, even though the A51 I think is better. And just based off a couple things, I would tell you, you can't really go wrong with either one of these. I don't think one is way better in every single category than the other one, but I think I would probably end up picking up the Google Pixel 4a over the Samsung Galaxy A51, and this has a lot to do with the experience with them in terms of the software. With With the Pixel 4a, I know that once the Android version comes out, I can go and install it. Even if I want the beta with the 4a, I could probably get the Android 11 beta, and that's a really good thing. And with the A51, I don't really get that experience. I just kind of get what Samsung gives me. It's probably going to get 1 or 2 versions of Android and that's it. With the Pixel 4a, we'll get those versions of software and I can custom ROM it later on if I want to do that. As long as there's developers for it, I'm pretty sure I can probably try to custom ROM it one way or another. And that's a humongous asset for a Pixel 4a. And with the A51, you don't really get that, but you are getting a really good display. You're getting a pretty good camera. You're getting a really good feeling phone. If those things are important to you, then the A51, get it by all means. But in my opinion, I think the 4a may be a little bit better than the A51 in my specific categories, but you may like the A51 better, and that's totally up to you. So that's really pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.